Today's community focus. Will they stay or will they go? We're talking about Hasbro and much more with House Speaker Joe Shekarchi. Thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. I always enjoy coming on your show, and I always enjoy coming to Channel 12. Before we get started, happy holidays to you and all your viewers.
Right back at you. So I wanted to have you in as we are approaching the end of the year to talk about looking ahead to 2025. But before we get there, our partners at the Globe Rhode Island just reported earlier this week that it's looking increasingly unlikely that Hasbro is going to keep its headquarters here in Rhode Island. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know just yet. I'm always concerned. I've been concerned since the news broke that Hasbro was looking for a location in Boston. We've been meeting with, the state's been meeting with the Hasbro team. I've spoken to Chris Cox, the CEO, privately. I've met with the single largest shareholder of Hasbro privately. I will tell you the state's doing everything they can to make sure they stay. Is it enough? I don't know. But what's frustrating this process today is we haven't had an ask from Hasbro of what they want yet. We know what their needs are, which is talent, recruitment, and retention, but we haven't had any kind of a financial ask. So in my meetings with him, I have told him that General Assembly is ready and willing and able to act in any reasonable package to keep them here and help them grow and prosper in Rhode Island. We'll just have to wait and see, and we're waiting to hear back from Hasbro.
All right, we will stay tuned on that front. We just had Governor McKee in studio yesterday, and I asked him about truck tolls in light of the court decision, which essentially says the state can turn them back on. And he said he's going to be meeting with you and the Senate president to talk about that. Where do you stand? Do you think the state should flip the switch now, and how does that process work?
Well, first of all, the decision is not final yet. There still could be some procedural hurdles that have to happen before the decision can be final. Once those things happen, and while they're waiting for them to happen, the state, the House Legal Counsel, the Senate Legal Counsel, the Governor's Legal Counsel have been meeting to figure out a course of action and a plan. So I wait for some direction from Governor McKee on what he thinks needs to be done. But my understanding is, from my initial interpretation, not my final review, but my initial one, is that it's going to require legislation because the caps, the discounts, so to speak, that we've given to local truckers are in the legislation, in the law. So whatever we do in terms of legislation will be very slow, will be very deliberate, will be also very transparent and very open to the public. And I encourage all party holders, all stakeholders, including the local truckers, to come forward and participate in that process, whatever it will be. But I think that ultimately the decision by the First Circuit Court was the right decision, and it's good news for Rhode Island. We have a bridge problem and we need revenue. Yeah,
that's for sure. Okay, so the last time I had Providence Mayor Brett Smiley here in studio, we talked about the Superman building. And of course, it's no surprise there's a big funding gap there for the redevelopment of that building to be turned into apartments. Have you spoken with the developer recently? Have they made a specific ask?
They have not. I have not. I've heard estimates from different people.
What have you heard?
There are $10 million of a gap, and then there's $30 million of a gap. I've also heard that they have made an application for a federal program called TOD, Transportation Oriented Development, which would allow them access to low interest money and some grant money because they're very close to the train station. So I don't know the status of any of those. I've had no formal asks at all from the developers, their lawyers, their lobbyists. No one has asked for any money at all from the General Assembly.
Is there an appetite from the General Assembly, from you, to assist them between 10 and 30 million?
I have been a speaker that has been open to everything. I never try to pre-rule, prejudge anything. So we would certainly keep an open ear and listen to everything, give everybody a chance to make the case. But I point out that we have facing a $330 million deficit. I also point out that, you know, among certain members of my caucus and the House in general, this is not popular to give a subsidy to a private developer. So there is already, let's not forget, the state has been on the hook for a big commitment already to the Superman building. This request, if it ever did come, would be something additional to that. So we will review that in a fair and open and transparent way.
We're almost out of time. 15 seconds, top priority for next year.
We're going to continue with housing. We're going to look at life science, bioscience, and obviously the single most important thing we do is to make sure we as a House initiate and pass a balanced budget that meets the needs of Rhode Islanders.
All right, House Speaker Joe Shekarchi, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be on your show.